This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Moonbody. Do you want a new and meaningful tattoo, but are also looking for a magical tattooing experience? Moonbody is an Andean art witch, tattooer, and tarot reader based in New Jersey who has been working with sigils for over 5 years. They offer sigil-making tattoo rituals for those seeking to bring about positive change in their lives, and the ritual involves cleansing, candles, breath work, and a collaborative sigil-making process. Once the sigil is made and approved, it will be tattooed, charged up with your energy and intentions. And if you're not ready for something so permanent, Moonbody also offers personal sigil-making sessions for general use, as well as virtual and in-person tarot readings. You can find them on Instagram at Moonbody or head to their website, moonbody.com, and note that moon is spelled with 3 O's. So that's MOOON body.com or MOOON body on Instagram. This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Mithras Candle. Behold the magic of Mithras beeswax candles. You know I'm obsessed with them, right? Handcrafted in Philadelphia, these sacred lights flicker with a golden flame and carry that divine honey and floral beeswax scent. Whether adorning your altar or bath, these candles steal the show and come in a variety of styles and colors seasonally. And right now, Mithras is having their biggest sale yet in celebration of the upcoming summer solstice, offering 30% off now through June 5th, 2024. So order those candles now so they arrive in time for all of your summer solstice fire magic celebrations. Order online today at mithrascandle.com. That's M as in magic, ITHRAS, candle.com. This season of The Witch Wave is brought to you in part by Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab. Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab is a fragrance house specializing in body and household blends with a dark, romantic, gothic tone. Over the years, they've collaborated with some of my very favorite creative visionaries, including Neil Gaiman, Jim Jarmusch, the Jim Henson Company, and most recently, Junji Ito. They continually return to inspirations drawn from witchcraft, paganism, and mythology, and they also have a sister store called Twilight Alchemy Lab, which creates oils blended and consecrated specifically for ritual use. The lab recently released their annual Halloween perfume collection, a limited edition series which includes scents inspired by folklore accounts of lycanthropy. Customer reviews of their products can be found at the fan-run bpal.org web forum, and you can check out all of their perfumes and other enchanting concoctions over at blackphoenixalchemylab.com.
The world is filled with bewitching people, and you might be one too. Welcome to the podcast where art is magic, magic is real, and reality is stranger than dreams. I'm Pam Grossman, and this is The Witch Wave.
Hello and welcome to The Witch Wave. I'm up here recording at our little house in the hills, and it's been really lovely to be here with our kitties, Monday and Birthday. Birthday is actually very close by, purring away, so he may make an appearance on mic if he's feeling sociable. And we're here also with a rainstorm, which you may or may not be picking up on, and a wildly overgrown lawn, which is being very visually loud right now. We're doing No Mow May this year to help the pollinators, and we definitely look like the crazy house on the block, but hey, it's farm country, so I like to think we're just rocking an appropriately pastoral vibe. A couple quick updates before we dive into the show today. The first of which is, if you happen to be listening to this on the day that it drops, which is Wednesday, May 29th, then this very night I am leading the monthly virtual ritual for all Patreon backers. This will be the Gemini Circle, and the theme is power couples, appropriately enough, by which I mean magical duos of all sorts, not just romantic ones. We'll be talking twins, halves, and doubles in magical practice, whether that's siblings, friends, creative partnerships, yes, romantic partnerships, but also, of course, two-faced gods and double deities or demi-deities like the Gemini twins. It's going to be a really good one. And as always, if you can't make it live, the recording will be available to all Patreon backers until next month's circle, so you can watch it at your leisure until then. And you can find all the details about all of it over at patreon.com/witchwave. And do join us if you haven't already. It's a really wonderful community of, yes, monthly rituals, bonus episodes, discounts, contests to win prizes, lots of detailed show notes. You've heard it all before, but it really is worth joining if you haven't already. We would love to have you in the magic circle. And next exciting news item, and that's that Jonica Stuckey and I will be teaching another online workshop in just a couple weeks, and this one is open to the public for a suggested donation. We'll be exploring the concept of the divine triad. So Jonica and I will be delving into the magic of triple goddesses like the Maiden Mother Crone, or the Maiden Empress Crone, as I like to call her. We'll be talking Hecate, of course. We'll be talking about the fates and the graces and so much more. So please join us via Zoom on Thursday, June 13th. And yes, the recording of that will be available to all registrants for 30 days after. So no worries if you can't make it live to that one either. And you can find details and registration for the Divine Triad Workshop via my Instagram bio over at my personal Phantasmaphile Instagram account, or over on pamgrossman.com/events. It's been a few months since Jonica and I have been able to offer a workshop together, and we love doing them so much. They are so special. We get incredible feedback from them and lots of people who like to come to everything we do together. So I do hope you'll join us if you're able to. It's going to be delicious. Okay, so now that you're updated on me, how are you? Ooh, that feels like such a loaded question these days. I know. Globally, nationally, personally, it's all just a lot, isn't it? I hope that you will join me in donating to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund if you're able to, and you can find a link to that on my Instagram page. Or I hope you'll donate whatever resources you have to whatever causes you feel called to right now. And otherwise, I just hope that you are taking really extra good care of yourself, of your heart, of your body, and of your spirit. We need people to not burn out. We need people who can sustain their energy over a prolonged period of time, because there are so many things that need our support and our advocacy and our change making. And the only way to do sustained, prolonged support is to keep ourselves fortified and soothed and well rested and take breaks before then, yes, continuing to fight all the good fights. And yes, wash, rinse, repeat. The cycle will continue and continue and continue. Now, I really think this episode can be a help in this regard, because today I'm speaking with Kimberly Rodriguez, who is the author of the book Incantations, Embodied: Rituals for Empowerment, Reclamation, and Resistance. And this is such a soothing and strengthening book full of stories and rituals to help us cast off external oppressive forces and internal oppressive forces too. And each section of the book opens with an incantation which Kimberly has written. And these incantations are just a few highly intentional poetic lines which each of us can declare out loud or even repeat to ourselves in order to give voice to our transformational power. I love the word incantation, and I have actually been researching and writing quite a bit about this word for my new book that I've been working on, because incantation is etymologically related to other words such as chant, enchant, recant, chanteuse, cantor, canticle, canto, and so on. And all of these words are rooted in the Latin word cantere, which means to sing. And in so many different cultures, if you go back far enough, there is this idea that singing and songs are magic, that they can heal and that they can conjure. For example, Odin, the Norse god of wisdom and sorcery, is also sometimes referred to as the Great Singer, and his rune spells are sometimes called songs. Furthermore, the Old Norse word galdur, Galdr, I may not be pronouncing that correctly, but this word is often translated today as magic, but it actually refers to a specific type of spell that is sung. And you'll find that a lot, that words for magic often have a musical root, this connection to singing and to using the voice rhythmically, which is essentially what poetry is, right? A rhythmic concentration and expression of meaning and magic, with the intention to make a change. So maybe you'll even want to sing some of Kimberly's incantations to yourself, or at the very least, recite them with a sense of poetry, of musicality, of rhythm, which will no doubt help unlock some of the power of these words. Anyhow, I found my conversation with Kimberly to be so inspiring, and I truly think that you will too. But before we get to that, first let's check and see what's come through on the Witch Wire.
Who is it?
Witches.
Hi Pam, this is Christy from Tasmania, Australia. Thank you so much for the Witch Wave. I absolutely love it. I'm actually just ringing about songs that I seem to come across that I feel have a very witchy vibe or beautiful witchy content. And one of them recently I came across was a Patti Smith song from the 1988, and it's called Wild Leaves. And when I was listening to it, I was just struck by how the words resonated with my witchy self, and how poetic and how bound to nature the words were. And I just wanted to get your reflections on music, and any music that you might enjoy that you find particularly activates your inner witch, and whether you seem to come across these songs that have the witch vibe encoded within them. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Hi, Christy. How wonderful that you're listening all the way in Tasmania. That just thrills me to bits. And I am doubly thrilled because you asked about one of my very favorite topics, which is the connection between music and magic. And you know what? I'm triply thrilled because you also brought up Patti Smith, who is one of my favorite artists of all time. Thrills on thrills on thrills. Okay, so I could talk about this topic all the livelong day. And this is one of the reasons that I've had so many musicians as guests on the Witch Wave, from Chelsea Wolfe to Natasha Khan from Bat for Lashes, to Eugen Blackrock, to Spelling's Tia Cabral. And that's to name just a few, because all of the musicians that I've been lucky enough to feature on this show, I've invited because I connect to their music on a magical level. But in terms of other specific songs that feel, well, incantatory and bewitching, here are just a few off the top of my head. First off, I have to mention the Witch Wave theme song, which is Hand and Eye. Now, this was written by Lycanthia, and I actually listened to her entire EP called Migration that this song is off of. I listened to this EP every time I sit down to write something magical or to work on a magical project. It's a musical talisman for me. And I actually interviewed her on a Witch Wave Plus episode a little while back, and we have a really great conversation about it. But yes, so Lycanthia's EP Migration is a kind of retelling of the descent of Inanna, that beautiful Sumerian myth. And the music just, I don't know, I just respond to it on a cellular level, a spiritual level, and it gets me in a magical mode. And if you go out and find it and you end up loving it too, I really encourage you to buy the files from her over on Bandcamp. That would be so appreciated so that we can keep supporting her and so she can make more new magical music, which I know she's been working on for a while now, and I cannot wait to hear it. Now, a few other songs that always help me tap into my most witchly self are Hymn to Her by The Pretenders, and hymn is spelled Hymn. This is essentially an invocation to the triple goddess. It is so beautiful. I listen to it all the time. And the official album version is gorgeous, but I actually love the live version, which you will find on their album called The Isle of View. Now, I've also talked a few times on the show about Bjork and how I've used lots of her music in a magical context, especially the song Pluto, which is an amazing, driving song with just a really intense beat and really intense energy. And I listen to it when I want to cast off an old shell and unfurl into a new phase of being. Ooh, it is good. And I'm also a huge Jonathan Richman fan, and he has several songs which are very magical and meaningful to me, but the one that's popping into my head right now is called Because Her Beauty is Raw and Wild. And I imagine that he wrote this as, a pretty standard love song, But for me, it just makes me think of Artemis, and it's shown up in my life at times when I know that Artemis is watching over me or guiding me in this synchronistic manner. And so I often play it when I'm doing any sort of devotional work to her. I also put this song on my Spotify playlist called Artemision. And speaking of playlists, I am constantly making magical playlists. I think it's its own kind of sonic spellcraft. And I even made one called Waking the Witch. And I made this when my book of the same name came out, but I keep adding to it. I can't help myself. I also have playlists for the solstice and for different magical themes that go with the different workshops I teach or circles that I lead. I have one for the goddess Iris called Ode to Iris. Anyway, that's just a sample of them. So yes, playlists are a divine way to use music to tap into our magic. And no, you don't have to use new age music or music that is specifically overtly pagan or witchy. You certainly can, and there's great music out there, but I love to incorporate songs like the one you mentioned by Patti Smith, where I just get a magical feeling from them. I just respond to them on the energetic level, and I know that when I hear them, I'm able to tap into my most magical self. Now, you're certainly welcome to listen to my playlists. My public ones are on Spotify under my account Phantasmophile, but I highly recommend you try making and listening to your own magical playlists on whatever theme you wish for whatever kind of energy you want to conjure. It's really fun to do, and it's really effective. Thank you so much for your question. And if you do end up making any playlists, Christy, please feel free to send them my way. Now, on to my guest. Kimberly Rodriguez is a first-generation indigenous Mexican artist and writer, also known on social media as Poeta Goddess. Her art reflects her journey toward reclaiming her indigenous roots and exploring different forms of self-expression. As an artist, Kimberly is deeply committed to creating work that is inclusive and accessible to all. She believes that art has the power to heal, connect, and inspire, and strives to use her platform to promote positivity and self-love. In addition to her art, Kimberly is also a writer and community activist. She is dedicated to using her talents and voice to create positive change and empower others to do the same. Her art and her writing are a celebration of diversity, resilience, and the beauty and strength that can be found in all of us. Kimberly's new book, Incantations Embodied, Rituals for Empowerment, Reclamation, and Resistance, is an offering that combines her writing, art, activism, and magic. It invites readers on a transformative journey of self-discovery and empowerment, and it seeks to dismantle the oppressive narrative that has been ingrained in our collective consciousness, urging us to question and challenge the colonized structures that have kept us disconnected from our own truth. Incantations Embodied also happens to be the first book chosen to be published by Spirit Bound Press, an independent publishing house devoted to fostering diverse voices in the spiritual community and run by two-time Witchwave guest Juliet Diaz. And that is a ringing endorsement for Kimberly's new book, Indeed. Kimberly joined me from her home in California's Bay Area via Zoom. Kimberly Rodriguez, welcome to the Witch Wave.
Wow, thank you so much for having me, Pam.
I'm so happy you're here. I have been really excited about your book ever since I had Juliet Diaz on the podcast for the second time. She, of course, is now your publisher with Spirit Bound Press, and your book is the first book, I understand, that they are publishing. Is that right?
Oh my gosh, yes, that is correct. Very grateful, very scary, but absolutely wonderful. It's been such a roller coaster of a journey, beautiful in all the ways.
Yes. Well, congratulations. And actually, why don't we start there? How did you and Juliet get in touch with each other? And how did this book even come to be?
Yeah, so actually, Julia and me have been following each other for, oh my gosh, I want to say like almost a decade. Huge fan of her work. And as soon as I heard that she was opening up her indie press, she made a post, I think from what I remember online, saying that she was accepting applications in the wellness, spirituality sectors. And at that time, I was already looking to hopefully finding my ideal book publisher who has the same values as me and morals. And just knowing Juliet already and the work that she does and everything that she pours online. And so, yeah, I read one of her posts saying that she was accepting applicants to publish manuscripts. So I sent her an email to Spiritbound Press, asked what they were needing, and sure enough, she sent me a long list of things that were needed in order to be considered.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I got to work on it right away. And I sent her a manuscript of what I already had sort of planned out for what I envisioned my book to be all about. And I sent her everything that she needed. And sure enough, within, I want to say like maybe a month or so, I heard back from her saying that she would love to publish my book.
Ah, and here we are. Congratulations. Well, Kimberly, I knew of your work primarily as an illustrator. I love your images so much. And I often say that it's challenging to convey images over a podcast. So I would love for you to describe your imagery. And then I would love for you to talk about what made you decide to pivot into writing an entire book, which we should say has beautiful images throughout it.
Well, first and foremost, I come from folks who are very creative.
Hmm.
My mother herself, I call her an artist, even though she would probably beg to differ. But she herself draws and embroiders, and so does both of my grandmothers, actually.
Who are both in the book, as is your mom.
Yes, yes. So I come from a long line of folks who are very creative and very expressive with their creativity. And for me, any form of art, but in particular, illustration and drawing has always been a way for me to self express, to be able to find myself. And I would say that my art really encompasses my humanity, me trying to explore my surroundings, trying to grow, trying to learn about how I want to show up in the world, reconnecting to our Mother Earth, reconnecting to my ancestors. So it has a lot of botanical elements. I started drawing out just nude bodies because
Hmm.
for me, that was also a way to heal body dysmorphia that I struggled with growing up. And so drawing nude bodies in a way was a way for me to reclaim myself in oftentimes a society that shames women for their bodies.
Yes.
My art is very much encompassed with nudity, so much Mother Nature in it. And it is also has a lot of elements of my culture. You will often probably see nude bodies dancing around in nature, drumming, singing, dancing, just celebrating themselves, healing, and really being in touch with how they want to show up.
So gorgeous. And so I know that your Instagram handle has the word poet in it, or is it
Yes,
poeta?
poeta, which means poet in
Yes.
English.
Yes. So I know that you also are a poet, and poetry is a big part of your background as well as a creative person. And it seems like this new book, Incantations Embodied, is really a synthesis of your poetic self or your poeta self and your illustrative self. Do you think that's a fair way to characterize it?
Oh, absolutely. It really is. When I first started walking this path of self reclamation and really trying to heal and sort of figure out how I wanted to show up in this world, heal generations of trauma, body dysmorphia, all the things that had accumulated over the years for me personally, my own personal journey. For me, a way to be able to self express and find myself was through words and through art.
Mm-hmm.
When I started writing poetry, it was really a way for me to sort of reclaim parts of myself that I
Mm-hmm.
felt were sort of picked apart by these colonial, capitalistic, societal expectations that have been placed on my communities. And so my writing was a way for me to reclaim that. And oftentimes, for me personally, growing up in a household where the space is not being provided for you to really talk about how you're feeling, things that you have gone through. I
Mm-hmm.
personally went through that in my own upbringing where I wasn't given that space of self expression because a lot of things get normalized from our society and it sort of trickles down to your family. And that's what causes generational trauma.
Absolutely.
One of the ways to reclaim and to stop that generational trauma from circling back and forth was to sit with myself and really explore how I wanted to show up, explore how I wanted to be in this world. And so words really were a gateway for me to be able to connect to that part of myself, to be able to express oftentimes in a space where I didn't have the words, where I wasn't allowed to have the words. So words became these very powerful moments of truth for me. Naturally, it wasn't something where I was just like, yep, I read a poetry book and I'm going to become a poet. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
It was more
Mm-hmm.
so a moment that just sort of naturally, gradually just happened where I just became inclined to navigate, to self explore myself through the power of words. And it has been a wonderful experience. And naturally, drawing just came into play after that. I always said,
Yeah.
oh, I need to put some sort of vision to these words that I'm writing. And so I started fidgeting around with drawing. And that's kind of what the goddess started becoming.
Yeah.
Its own little space for folks to come and visit my Instagram or wherever I share my art, a space where they can come and really feel at home, feel safe, or have a space to be able to heal and find themselves.
Absolutely. That's definitely my experience when I look at your work. And it was definitely my experience when I was reading your beautiful words. Now, when we're talking about this new book, the subtitle of Incantations Embodied is Rituals for Empowerment, Reclamation, and Resistance. And in the book, you say that you intend for the book to, quote, show you how to harness the liberating incantations on these pages and embody the forces around and within you so you can become who you were always meant to be. So, this really is a book about, as you already said, healing yourself, stepping into your power. But also, you talk a lot about the ways in which society imposes these kinds of standards, these really damaging structures that we are all privy to. But I completely understand that when you are in a body that doesn't look like the quote unquote typical body, it's going to be all the more challenging too. And so, what I love about this book is that anybody is welcome into it, and the different incantations you share, the different rituals you share are for people regardless of their bodies or backgrounds, because we all suffer from these like
Yes,
patriarchal white standards that are imposed upon us, right?
absolutely. Yes, we are all, and I say it in the book, of course, we have all been in some way victim to the capitalistic colonial mindset, the way of existing, how we're only supposed to show up a certain way, right? And that has been so normalized in our society that oftentimes we navigate our entire lives thinking that this is the only way to exist. And so I actually share a little snippet in the beginning of my book, an experience that I had when I was like maybe, I think I want to say like 13, about this cat collar and how naturally in that moment, in that experience when I was being catcalled, my body naturally just went into defense mode and I shouted some big cuss words.
We curse like pirates on the Witch Wave. Can you tell us what you said?
Yes, I said, go fuck yourself in Spanish.
Could you say it in Spanish?
Yes, I said, vete a chingar a tu madre.
Nice.
Well, actually, it means go fuck your mother, but
The intentions were known, I'm sure.
yeah. So I said that, and I was even shocked at that moment. I say that to say because I feel like our bodies naturally have the words to fight for themselves. And that is the point of Incantations Embodied, is for you to find the words that still exist within us, whether they are cuss words,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that your words are, to feel resilient, to feel protected, to feel safe. Our bodies know the words,
Yes.
but we live in a society that has normalized to be polite, to say yes all the time, to be in servitude all the time. And that's not a way to exist. It does not honor our bodies. It does not honor our spirit. It does not honor anything of who we are. Our ancestors did not live by those rules.
Mm-hmm.
All of our ancestors fought for their existence in one way or another. And it is this society that has normalized a lot of our behaviors today that do not honor us. So,
Mm-hmm.
Incantations Embodied is an invitation for folks to find their words in all the ways possible because they exist within us. Our bodies remember.
Yes. And what I love about this book is, first of all, in every section, you provide us with your own beautiful, very poetic incantations that you are offering to us, which we may use. And as you say in the book, these aren't just like affirmations or mantras, they are incantations. They're little spells, right? And they're ways for us to empower ourselves, fortify ourselves, heal ourselves. But you're also very careful to say, like, these are my words, please use them, but also adapt them. And you also provide lots of blank space
Absolutely.
for us to journal and write our own words and responses. And I think that's really lovely that it's like a collaborative process. It's not just prescriptive.
Right. And that was something very important for me to make my readers understand that what works for me, my personal experience, may not be the same for the reader, and that's okay. And so I wanted to make sure that I gave the reader the space to, yes, read what I just taught you, what I shared with you,
Mm-hmm.
and adapt it on your own way. That was just very important for me to add because one of my issues that I've had previously in my own personal experience has been where I'm reading these wellness books and they are very to the core. If you don't do it like this,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to do it wrong. Then it's not working for you. It's not going to work. And so that was one of the big intentions of my book. Healing is nonlinear, and what works for me may not work for you, and that's okay. But here is sort of a little structure. And if you wish to adapt it, great. And if you want to move things around, please go ahead. I always say that our bodies always know, our intuition is something big. And so if something doesn't feel right, then feel free to adapt.
Yes, I love it. And it really empowers us and encourages us to be creative ourselves. And that's a big mission of mine too, which is to help people understand that we all have magic in us and the most personal is the most potent. And so we can trust ourselves and trust our own creativity and intuition in terms of making our own magic.
Yes.
Why don't we talk about the structure of the book? It's divided into 4 parts. And Kim, I'm going to do my best to try to pronounce these in Spanish. I woefully took French when I was growing up, so please forgive me.
Oh, no, you're good.
Part 1 is disipando, which is dispelling. Part 2 is
Yes.
cultivar, cultivate. Part 3, revelación, revelation. Part 4 is expresión, expression. How did I do?
Oh, you did great.
Thank goodness.
Love it.
Okay. And then each of those sections is further broken down into different intentions, really, or different kinds of energies that you're encouraging us to lean into or to explore.
Yes, absolutely. So each part is broken down into what I call offerings because, I mean, initially it's a chapter, but it's an offering. It's an invitation for you to partake. So, yeah, each of the parts is broken down into 2 offerings, and it is an entire journey. You are going to explore everything from the mother wound, everything from empathy, everything to embodiment, everything to writing your own incantations. There is so much, and I love everything about it because I was able to add personal stories. That was one of the things for me is that I wanted to make it very personable. I didn't want to come across as this, I don't know it all. To me, and I say it in the book, I am just a person who has gone through some shit, and I
Yep.
am here to share that experience and wisdom with you and hopes that it can resonate with someone out there. And that was very important for readers to see that. And so, as scary as it sometimes might feel to be very vulnerable, I found it so necessary. And it was such a beautiful experience to be so open with my readers on here on all the personal experiences that I personally have gone through that has allowed me to walk the path that I'm walking, that has allowed me to find myself in all the chaotic and beautiful ways possible. So you're in for a treat. You're in for a
Yes.
treat in every chapter.
Yes, I can attest to that. On that note, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by the book Alive with Spirits, out now from Wiser Books. At the root of most spiritual traditions is the aspiration to realize one's birthright, the intimate connection with the land and the spiritual energies that inhabit it. This connection with the land and its spirits is perhaps nowhere more powerfully felt than in the various traditions of paganism and witchcraft. But the conditions of modern society strain that relationship, leaving us feeling disconnected to our craft and unable to feel that deep and vital connection. In Alive with Spirits, you'll discover a path to fully embrace a world filled with spirits, communion with the land, and a greater sense of belonging in the world, a worldview known as animism. You'll explore animism in a hands-on way that teaches through first-hand, direct experiences. Through embodied exercises based in wholeness, you'll learn to see the world more fully for what it is and to better understand your place in it. In Alive with Spirits, you'll be invited to learn the 3 general types of local spirits and the breadth of variety that exists among them. Explore the importance of relationships and what it means to be in community. Uncover the way that the wholeness of the world is reflected in the wholeness of the self, and how to nurture right relationships with your local spirits. Alive with Spirits will provide you with a firm foundation from which to transform your witchcraft practice, rooting it into the land and in strong, respectful relationships with the spirits around you. The author, Althea Sebastiani, is also known as Lady Althea on social media, and she is a spirit worker, writer, and priest whose work focuses on helping people navigate the realities of deep spiritual practice. Her work primarily takes the forms of spiritual counseling and education framed within the contexts of animism and witchcraft. And she contends that witchcraft is a tool that enables us to see and interact with the world more honestly. So go ahead and pick up her new book, Alive with Spirits, today. The Witch Wave is sponsored by BetterHelp. I cannot believe that we're already halfway through this year. It has gone by so quickly, but it's a really good time to stop and take stock of where we're at. Lately, I've been thinking about stuff that I'm proud that I've done in 2024. And also, I've been thinking about things that I still want to accomplish in the second half of this year. I'm really proud of all the writing I've been doing, and I'm so happy that I'm currently on track to finish my new book and hit the deadline that I've been given. Let me knock on wood. But it also means that I haven't been as on top of some of my self-care goals. I totally admit it. And so now is a really good time for me to, yes, celebrate my wins, but also recalibrate a bit and make adjustments for the rest of the year. Therapy can help each of us take stock of our progress and set achievable goals for the next 6 months. And as you all know, I'm a huge proponent of therapy, and I cannot say enough good things about how going to various therapists at various points throughout my life has helped me internalize my successes, as well as come up with strategies to make future changes that I need to make to keep myself feeling well. Therapy provides us with an opportunity to pause and take a moment to consider not only where we've come from or where we're at, but also where we want to go from here and how we can get there. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Take a moment with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/witchwave today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, spelled HELP.com/witchwave. Hi, Witch Wavers. I have exciting news. At long last, we have some new Witch Wave merch available for you now through TeePublic. We decided to go with TeePublic for our new Witch Wave merch because it is a print-on-demand site, which means you can get different variations of the Witch Wave logo printed on t-shirts, mugs, totes, stickers, magnets, notebooks. Oh my gods, the sky's the limit. And the shirts come in different styles and fabrics and colors and are available in sizes small through 5XL, so you can order whatever you'll feel you're most magical in. So head on over to witchwavepodcast.com/shop. Welcome back to the Witch Wave. Today I'm speaking with Kimberly Rodriguez. So, Kim, we were talking about just like the meat of the book, and I just want to make sure that listeners know, it is very interactive. There's a lot of different parts to each section. You offer embodiment exercises, practices, rituals. Each section has a beautiful illustration. I think you call them portals. So it's almost like an illustration for us to meditate on, which I find so beautiful. I also loved how you did the descriptions of the illustrations at the end of the book for people who might be listening to it or who might otherwise not be able to see if they're visually impaired or something like that, which I thought was really, really wonderful. There are visualizations, there are journal prompts. I mean, it really is like, for me, I would use the word grimoire because that's the language I speak. Yeah.
I love that even better. Yes, a grimoire, a workbook, whatever resonates best for you. But yeah, it's a very interactive book. And we are going to be tackling in this book a lot of personal and oftentimes hard things. So there's a lot of moments where I give readers a moment to just take a breath because it is hard to tackle everything. So I oftentimes tell readers, hey, take a moment. And I offer a lot of spaces where you can just draw and doodle and get in touch with your inner little child and have some playtime, because as much as we're tackling all these very hard things throughout the book, it is important to also have fun.
Yes.
And to be playful because, come on, it's hard talking about all of this. It is so hard. And so I feel like it's a good balance of everything. And you mentioned the illustrations. Yeah. So the illustrations were intentionally left, not colored in. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned it on the book. It's an invitation for folks to come in and color them in. For me, one of the ways that I love to fully practice my embodiment practices is to take a strong image, or what I consider a strong image, or whatever it is that I need to embody in that moment, reflect it as an image, and then color it in. Because for me, that's a ritual in itself where I am coloring in, let's say, a picture that makes me feel strong or an image that makes me feel strong. And in that moment, I'm coloring it in and I'm embodying that energy.
Ooh.
So all of the images are intentionally left just with the outline, not colored in, as an invitation for folks to color it in and hopefully embody whatever message that particular image might be giving you.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. I want to dive a little bit deeper and talk about, some of the, I guess we could call it shadow work that you have us do in the book. And a lot of it is framed in this idea that we touched on earlier, that like decolonizing our own ideas about each other, but especially about ourselves, is so important. And this is a word, decolonize, it comes up a lot on the show. I think listeners are relatively familiar with it, but I love the way you talk about colonization. You have this word, fodonga. Is that the word?
Yes, it is.
Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, you did. Fodonga. Yep.
Okay. You said it so much better. You describe it as the colonial capitalist ghost. And you say it's a Spanish word used to describe someone who is gross, filthy, dirty, grimy, or lazy.
It is.
I love that. I love that you've kind of like anthropomorphized the spirit of capitalism and patriarchy and colonization as this ghost. And I would love for you to just talk us through that a little bit more.
Yeah. So folonga is a word that is thrown around in Latine households. It is usually just a funny word to throw to something or someone who maybe has poor hygiene or is just icky.
Like a dirtbag.
Yeah, kind of like that, like a dirtbag, something icky, nasty, stinky. So that's kind of what that word means in Latine households. So when I think about our colonial capitalistic world, I think of it as something nasty, sticky, stinky, icky, gross. And when I was writing this book, I was all like, I want to throw in some humor. We're already dealing with so much. I'm talking about some big, major things. I'm going to throw in something, hopefully make my readers laugh a little bit. And I was like, what reminds me of our colonial capitalistic society that we live in? And I was like, well, naturally, a fodonga. If I was to look at our colonial society, how it is now, I would look at it as something gross.
Mm-hmm.
And so naturally, this word sort of came to be. And that's sort of what it represents to me, this colonial capitalist society that we live in. It is a haunting ghost. And naturally, it really is for many of us that has impacted many of our lives, many of our families, that has trickled down into generational trauma. So Folonga, it's an entity in my mind, and it has shown up in my personal life as this daunting ghost sort of just lingering around that oftentimes feels like you can't escape it.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine that many of us who have been victims, which I meant all of us in some way or another have been victims to our colonial capitalistic society, this ghost has lingered around for many of us.
Yeah, and it's time to exorcise that ghost, right?
Exactly. And so, yeah, through Incantations Embodied, it's an invitation for folks to be able to work through that because, again, it is a space to be able to take back our voice and our power in that moment.
Yes. So speaking of voice, I mean, there's so many sections of this book that we could linger on, but I really loved your section called Conjurar, about conjuration. You talk about two different words in Spanish that I find really moving. Do you like how I keep on just mangling this beautiful language? Why am I doing this to myself?
I love it.
So one is desahogar. Am I saying that correct?
Desahogar.
Oh, so the answer was no. I said it terribly. I'm not even going to try. But this means to vent. And you talk
Yes.
about platicas and talks. And those two phrases really lingered with me and left a really big impression in a beautiful way. So, can you talk us through both of those phrases and what they mean to you?
So in Latinx American folk healing practices, there's a practice called curanderismo.
Sure.
And in curanderismo, a lot of the medicine people who practice these practices, one of the healing methods are called pláticas. And pláticas is initially a talk that you can have with someone else. And this is a talk where the main practice is to desahogar the spirit. So meaning undrown the spirit.
Ooh, beautiful. I love that notion. Undrown the spirit.
Yeah, because in many instances, or at least in my culture's healing practices, we believe that oftentimes, whatever it is that we might be dealing with, whether it's depression, whether it is some type of wellness issue, oftentimes we believe that it is the spirit that is drowning. And it is so oftentimes related to the fact that we have been taught to be silent, that we have taught not to speak about our sorrows, about what pains us. And so this beautiful practice is a way to undrown the spirit by simply having a very heartfelt and meaningful conversation with someone who you trust or someone who is rooted in that medicine that they practice. And I absolutely love this practice because, again, I grew up in a space where oftentimes speaking about what pained me wasn't allowed, or we were
Mm-hmm.
told,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's what happened to you. Oh, I've gone through worse. It's so dismissive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I find myself really resonating with this practice because it gives the opportunity to the person who has experienced whatever it is that pains them, the opportunity to undrown, to speak about what pains them. And in that moment, as you are speaking, you are undrowning your spirit.
Ah,
So it's a beautiful experience.
that really moves me. And it's interesting because one of the questions I actually get asked a lot is, are there any therapists who are welcoming to spiritual work? And there are more and more of them. I would love to see that field expand. I'm very fortunate. My therapist happens to be Buddhist. And so when I bring my like full witch self to our sessions, she's like here for it. And we can speak spiritually as much as we're also speaking psychologically. And to me, the
I
spirit
love that.
and, our psyche, they are interlinked. And of course, shamans forever have known that like healing is not just something that happens in the mind, it's also something that happens to your spirit and with the spirits. And so it seems like what you're talking about is a much more integrated, holistic way of healing somebody. It's therapeutic, but it's also engaging these spiritual paradigms as well.
It sure is. And I feel like many of us forget that we come from peoples who are rooted in this type of medicine. Again, it's because so much of Western medicine has been so normalized in our cultures that we feel that's the only way. I would love to see more therapists, psychologists integrate more of spiritual practice as well. And I feel like we're maybe slowly shifting in that direction. But again, I for sure personally have had to change therapist a few times because that alignment isn't there.
Mhm, exactly.
It's very much like, let me pinpoint what's wrong, but it's never, well, let's get a little bit more soulful.
And that's also so colonialist, right? Like to be like, "Oh,
Exactly.
let's divide up ourselves into these parts and let's only address like your brain or your head or your thoughts." It's like, "No, no, no, no. We're these holistic beings. We are spirits. We have magic. We have ancestors. There's all these other parts that can be addressed in our healing." And that's what your book is attempting to do as well. It's like this much more integrated approach. And I know you're not a therapist. You say that right at the front. And let's be clear, I'm
Yeah.
not either. But I really do appreciate that a lot of the work that you have us do in the book, it's therapeutic. It truly, truly is.
Yeah.
I would love to hear you also talk, Kim, about your relationship to, I mean, you already brought up curandrismo.
Yes.
At the top of the book, you talk about the word brujex. That's come up on the podcast a lot. It's the Spanish word for witch,
Yes.
the more modern version of bruja or bruje, right? Which is
Yes.
the kind of like non-binary version, brujex, right?
Right.
What is your relationship to that word? Do you consider yourself a brujex?
I do relate to the word bruja. And to me, initially, bruja means that I hold the power. And I am not
Ooh.
afraid of it, nor am I afraid to use it. That's what that word means to me.
I just got chills when you said that, Kim. Bruja means I hold the power. Fuck yes.
Yes. So that's what that means to me. It means I hold the power and I'm not afraid to use it. And I think that is why the word bruja or witch in general has gotten demonized for centuries. And that's because it holds power,
That's
because
right.
a witch is powerful. It is an individual who is rooted in their self worth, who protects themselves, who is not complicit, who does not assimilate, who disrupts the colonial capitalistic society, a
Yes.
witch who is just powerful. It's a powerful individual. And I am a witch in all aspects of it. Yes.
Wonderful. I always love when people say it loud and proud. Now, you share a lot of familial stories in the book, but for our listeners, can you talk about especially your maternal line? It sounds like I know they both maybe at times made you feel like you had to be quiet or behave, but it also sounds like they taught you a lot of empowering things too. Like there's this real dichotomy there. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
It is. It really is. And to be completely honest, it's very confusing growing up like that because you're given moments of feeling empowerment, but you're also being shown in that same moment to minimize yourself.
What does that look like? Can you give us an example of getting kind of this double speak or double messaging?
Yeah. So growing up, there's this word in very unfortunately popular in Latina households where it says calladita te ves más bonita, meaning the quieter you are, the prettier you look.
Ugh.
And it was passed around so much in my household. And I naturally just sort of internalized that, meaning the quieter that I am, the better daughter I would be, the, I guess, prettier I would look, more lovable, more
Mhm.
accepting I would be. And then on that same note, there would be moments where maybe I was having a bad day and my mom would be like, no, well, you have to stand up for yourself. And so it was very much a what's more convenient type of moment. A lot
Mhm.
scenarios would happen in my household. And it was very confusing growing up like that, where you are sort of given the moment to speak up, but then also on that same breath, not if it was not convenient for that person in that
Mhm.
space.
Mhm.
And I grew up like that and it was very, very confusing. And I found that if we're speaking about my mother, it was the same pattern that she grew up in
Mhm.
and how she was raised. And rather than showing up angry, well, now as an adult, I talk a lot about growing empathy for my mother.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was a very confusing upbringing. I had to really, as an adult, sit down with what that looked like and that means for me now. And here we are.
Are you able to track in your own life a moment when you shifted, or was it more gradual than that? Because it sounds to me like you've really come into your own. You've really come into your bruja-ness, your power. And that's a big journey to go from someone who feels like she has to be quiet to be pretty to now writing a whole book about being loud and loving yourself. Literally
Yes.
speaking out loud, saying incantations out of your body with your voice, being heard, letting spirit hear you. How did that happen for you?
There was a moment where I just sort of me and my mother's relationship detached. And I talk a lot about my mother, mainly because that was one of the big sort of driving forces for this book.
Sure. And this is in California, am I right, Kim?
Yes, yes, California, Bay Area.
Okay, great.
So there was a moment where I broke my ankle. I think I was like 20. I had no other choice but to be at home, and my mom was caring for me. It was just me and my mom at home. And during that time, I was in my 20s. I was out and about all the time, partying, going to school, doing all the things. And this moment of being forced to sit my butt down at home sort of allowed me to be in the same space as my mother during a time where we were very rocky.
Mhm.
During that time, my mom started caring for me. She had to shower me, she had to nurture
Mhm.
me, she had to do all the things for me.
Mhm.
And that sort of sparked a connection that I had not seen there before or that I had not felt before. It was a different side to my mother that I had not seen in a long time since I was a child.
Just more maternal, more nurturing?
It was more nurturing, more maternal, more compassionate,
Mm.
more attentive. And that sort of was healing my inner child in a way that I feel like when I was a child, I didn't really get to experience because I don't think I shared this on here. I'm actually the eldest daughter
Mm.
of four.
Wow.
So I was forced into responsibilities very early on.
Kim, do you know they're calling it a syndrome now? Eldest daughter syndrome? I know.
I've seen those videos. And you know what? They're so funny.
Yeah, there's like a New York Times article about it. There's all these TikTok videos about it. I'm the baby of 2. I don't
Yeah,
relate at
no,
all, but I understand.
I find those so funny and I relate to all of them so much because it's true. It's like a whole different reality being the eldest child. So, yeah, being the eldest child, naturally, you grow up fairly fast. You're
Mhm.
kind of robbed of your childhood in some way because you're taking care of your younger siblings and you're stepping into bigger roles, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, yeah, during this moment of me having my little broken ankle, my mother had to step in and be very nurturing and We started growing closer during that moment, and it healed something in me. And I told myself, this feels safe. This feels loving. This feels comfortable. And it was during a time where I just didn't feel any of those feelings. So that was sort of the gateway into me kind of sitting with myself and telling myself, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't want to be the angry teen, the angry young adult. I don't want to continue taking this anger with me. And I want to build a relationship with my mother. I want to feel comfortable to be able to come to her and speak with her. I love this side of her. And I feel like if I can also meet my mother in that level, I feel like something beautiful can happen. Because we often forget that our parents are also just navigating their own experiences as well. There was like this, what was it, a video that I came across recently. It was someone saying, do you guys ever just wonder how your mom is just a little girl also navigating her own experiences? Something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yeah, because oftentimes we just look at our mothers as just our mothers
Sure.
and nothing more than that.
Yep.
So that moment really allowed me to look at my mother in a different perspective rather than just this anger that I was holding on to.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that. On that note, we're going to take another quick break and we'll be right back. This season of The Witch Wave is brought to you in part by Sphere and Sundry, an astro-magical atelier where you can get expertly elected materia magica, oils, incense, bath salts, salves, inks, beauty oils, and more, which have been ritually crafted during rare, powerful, and benefic astrological configurations. And oh my word, I can tell you firsthand, this is the stuff. These formulas are chosen in accord with the strict requirements of the talismanic tradition outlined in the Picatrix and other ancient grimoires, meaning you can benefit from the power of amazing astrological transits, even when the stars haven't aligned. These are incredible tools for witches who are looking to embrace the manifestations and results of their spell work, especially the Luna in Cancer series. And I myself have the Luna in Cancer incense, and it is a dream to use for any kind of lunar magic. Venus materia can be used for love, glamour, and attraction. Regulus for fame and recognition, Asclepius for healing and transformation, and Deneb al-Gedi for protection. I also used several of Sphere and Sundry's magical products on site in Greece during our group rituals, and they were so potent and so exquisite. I can't say enough good things about them. Since 2018, Sphere and Sundry have been a key driver in the rising tide of popularity and interest in astrological magic, amassing over 5,000 five-star reviews and field reports on their website. Most orders ship within one business day, and Sphere and Sundry is also well known for their incredible customer service, as they are their magical results, and I can attest to that as well. Learn more and get $10 off your first order at sphereandsundry.com using the code WitchWave. That's sphereandsundry.com, sphereandsundry.com, and use code WitchWave for $10 off your first order. This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Maud's Paper Wing Gallery. The queer witches of Maud's Paper Wing Gallery would like to say Happy Pride Month to all the queer folks tuning in. Maud's queer witches are building a community of witchy and queer nerds where folks can be silly and soft together, step into their authentic selves, play with gender, heal from trauma, and be vulnerable with one another. They would love for you to join them. So if you're near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, stop in for Queer Coven or their monthly full moon parties at their haunted They Bar, Harold's Haunt. Or you can join their virtual community on Discord or Facebook. Need to stock up on Pride merch from a small queer-owned business as we head into June? Shop with Maud's Queer Witches at queerwitches.com. And you can get 13% off your first order with offer code WITCHWAVE. That's one word, WITCHWAVE, for 13% off your first order at queerwitches.com. They hope your summer is full of silly fun, rainbows, glitter, love, and support. Would you like even more Witch Wave? Do you wish that you could hear from me and my other magical guests on a weekly basis? And what about doing monthly rituals with yours truly? Then come join me over on Patreon, where you'll get bi-weekly bonus Witch Wave Plus episodes, ad-free Witch Wave episodes, and detailed show notes for all. I also lead a monthly online magical workshop, which you can attend live or watch the recording of at your convenience. Rewards for some tiers also include magical merch and contests where you can win Witchly prizes each month, as well as early heads up about my other workshops before they sell out. And you can even sign up for the opportunity to work with me one-on-one. And all backers get access to our exclusive digital coven, where you can connect to a community of other wonderful Witch Wave witches around the world. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to patreon.com/witchwave now and sign up. It's a magnificent way to get more magic in your life and to support the show. Thanks so much. Welcome back to the Witch Wave. Today, I'm speaking with Kimberly Rodriguez. So, Kimberly, it just struck me, 2/3 through this interview, that I have not asked you to read one of your incantations yet, and I would really love for you to do so because they're woven throughout the book. Obviously, there are a lot of other exercises and rituals throughout the book, but it seems to me, the whole book is named Incantations Embodied. So I really want listeners to hear your lyrical, beautiful, magical writing. So I actually chose one of my favorite incantations from the book, though I love all of them. Would you do me the honor of reading it to us?
Yes, of course. And I quote, "May you see pain as an invitation to healing, forgiveness, and strength. May you become the conjurer of all the benevolent powers waiting to assist you. And may you turn traumatic experiences into magical opportunities for healing sorcery."
Yes. So mote it be. I love it.
So mote it be, yes.
Now, that incantation you wrote in regard to a traumatic experience that you had, and I don't want to ambush you by making you talk about it if you're not up to that today, but you do write about it in the book. And trauma is an interesting word. It comes up a lot these days. And certainly we can experience trauma directly, but then there's also intergenerational trauma, which comes up a lot. What is your relationship to that word trauma, and how do you think incantations and magic can help us move through some of those really dark, shadowy experiences?
Yes. So I say in my book that trauma, it's a repercussion of something that happened to us, but it is not who we are. And we have the power to choose not to carry it forward. And so in my own journey, I invite folks to be able to take these painful, traumatic experiences oftentimes and transmute them into powerful moments of truth and resilience. And so that's what I want folks to take away from the entire book, and in particular this chapter, is to know that you have the power to be able to transmute those experiences. We don't have to be victims of our traumas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we all need to understand. We do not have to stay victims to that. We can be victors if we choose to transmute that trauma into powerful moments of truth. And I offer a variety of prompts, exercises, embodiment practices that folks can do. It's an invitation for you to do, to be able to sit with those experiences and hopefully be able to transmute them. So just know that you don't have to own those experiences. It can definitely be something that can be transmutable, for sure.
I love that. I would also be curious to hear how you deepening into your relationship with like the goddesses and gods and the mythology of your ancestry has maybe helped you transmute some of that as well.
Oh my gosh, has it? Connecting to my ancestral roots from Mexico and all of the deities that we have, and as well as connecting to my ancestors, has been a wonderful gateway into feeling empowered and into finding myself.
When did that start for you? Because I have to say, it's really interesting. I interview people from all different backgrounds on this show. And so many of us have the same experience where we feel like we're circling back to something, that it's not necessarily something that there was this unbroken line of tradition that was passed down to us.
Right.
And my family's Jewish, and through lots of years of assimilation and immigration, generations ago, a lot of Jewish traditions and mythology and folk magic was lost. And I'm only now in my 40s discovering some of this stuff. And when I talk to people, it feels like that's a similar pattern that no matter what our background is, a lot of us are experiencing now, particularly if we are not just like of European Christian descent, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I come from a Catholic background, so I didn't grow up with my indigenous traditions. It was something that I seeked out in my 20s.
Yep.
And I'm in my 30s now. So it's something that I seeked out in my 20s when I started my healing journey. And it was wonderful. And I think oftentimes many of us seek those out because we want that connection. We understand that what we're given right now is not helping us in any way. We've assimilated and it's time to turn the table. So yeah, I didn't grow up with my traditional indigenous roots. It was something I had to seek out later.
Was there like a gateway goddess for you? Like someone you fell in love with and you were like, this is giving me the medicine I need?
Yeah. So I actually share a story of one of the goddesses here on my book, and their name is Coatlicue. And she is the goddess of serpents.
Yes.
So I feel very connected to her. There's a whole story that I write about here on my book. And she is initially the goddess mother of all of the other deities that exist in my indigenous culture. And her story is wonderful. If you take a moment to read it, I think it's towards the end of the book. And I really relate with her story because of how powerful she is. And I remember, actually, I have a funny story. I actually bought one of her statues. And that moment that I got her statue in, I kid you not, I went to bed and I had the most intense dream ever of serpents in the water. And it felt, those dreams where you just wake up and you're all like, I could have sworn that was real.
Yes, of course.
And so it was one of those experiences. And I knew right there and then, like, she's speaking to me. This is one of those goddesses that I abide by and that I connect with in so many levels. So yeah, Coatlicue. It's a wonderful story that I share in the book.
Yes, it's a beautiful story. Well, we want people to read the book as well. So we'll just leave them on that cliffhanger. Kim, I have a personal question for you. And if you don't want to answer it, we can just chuck this out in the edit. But I noticed you have a tattoo from La Loteria. It's La Lune, right? The moon. Am I correct about that?
Oh, this one. Yes.
Yes.
This one.
Am I right that that's from the Loteria cards?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes. This is the moon from La Loteria, which is a Latina playing card game, which is very famous in all Latina households.
Right.
It's like bingo
for
Latino.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just was curious as to the story behind it. I know some people think it's very rude to ask about tattoos, but it caught my eye. So I hope you don't mind.
No, I have a deep connection to the moon. Love the moon and everything that it represents. I do have a full moon on here, but it's a lot smaller. I just have a deep connection also to La Loteria because that was like, for me as a little girl, that was like the first little image of the moon and feeling like, oh, this is so pretty.
Yes.
Playing like a little 7-year-old girl, La Loteria.
It's so magical. And I just love how it blends all of your different threads together, just your identity together. I just was really moved by it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for indulging me. I was just being nosy, but I figured I'd ask while it caught my eye.
No, I love those questions.
Kim, we just have a couple more minutes here. And I wanted to invite you to just, in the spirit of your book, Incantations Embodied, Is there an intention you'd like to leave us with? Is there perhaps an incantation you feel called to leave us with? Whatever words that you feel called to sort of put a beautiful, magical, embodied bow on this conversation with, I invite you to now.
Yes, of course. I will like to share the intention of Incantations Embodied. Incantations Embodied is a journey back to yourself. That's what I want to tell folks who are listening. This is a journey back to the self that is decolonial, that is compassionate, with honesty and integrity and with love. It is a journey to find yourself without the oppressive barriers that the colonial system has normalized. And so the intention is to meet yourself shamelessly and without the oppressive barriers we have all been victims to, especially those folks who come from marginalized communities, but we've all been victims in some way or another. So, yeah, I hope folks find themselves throughout the pages of this book.
Ah, so exquisitely said. Well, I think the book is beautiful. I think it's going to bring a lot of inspiration and healing and incantatory magic to lots of people. Congratulations again. And Kim, last question, how can people connect with you? How can they follow you? Where can they get your book, etc.?
You can order the book wherever books are sold, but you can also find it on my website, which is www.poetagoddess.com. And you can follow me. I'm mostly on Instagram, which is Poeta Goddess. So yeah, that's where folks can find it. Please support indie bookstores if you can.
Yes, exactly. And we should say that you being the first selection for Spirit Bound Press, it really is a huge endorsement because Juliet Diaz, if you go back and listen to my conversation with her most recently, I mean, both of our conversations are great, but the most recent one, she really is being so selective about the books that she is publishing and putting into the world. And the fact that she wanted you to be like the initiatory book, if you will, I think is just a huge compliment and a well-deserved one. So big congratulations again to you, Kim. And I hope everyone goes out and reads Incantations Embodied.
Thank you so much, Pam. Thank you for your time and thank you for having me.
That's it for the show. Thank you again to Kimberly Rodriguez for sharing her enchanting incantations with me. Do you have questions, feedback, need some witchly advice, or just want to share something magical that happened to you recently? Please do drop us an email or a voice memo at witchwavepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and you just might make it on the Witch Wire. The Witch Wave is a Phantasmophile production written and produced by me, Pam Grossman. This episode was recorded and edited by Josh Wilcox and/or Walter Nordquist and myself. Our theme music is the song Hand and I by Lycanthia. Our new Witch Wave logo was designed by Thunderwing. And special thanks, as always, go to Matt Freeman, Laura Antal, and Cece Pascal. You can check out information about this and other episodes on our website and now buy Witch Wave merch over at witchwavepodcast.com. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app and do consider giving us lots and lots of sparkly stars and glowing reviews. It really, truly does make a difference and helps other people find the show. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at WitchWavePod, and you can check out my witch emoji for iPhone by going to witchemoji.com or downloading it in the App Store. My book, Waking the Witch, is available everywhere now, and the Witchcraft book I edited and co-authored for Tashin is as well, so thank you for checking those out too. And if you want more Witch Wave, or you would just like to support the show, please do join us over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/witchwave. Thank you so much for listening. Witches are the future. I'll catch you next time on The Witch Wave.